Okay, you guys, we are live and so excited that you're here. And to all of our participants, this has been a different time, so we probably have a little bit of a different crowd, but we are absolutely thrilled to welcome you both with us today. And so right as we're getting started, will you introduce yourselves and kind of what we're talking about tonight? And like we just want the story of how you two met. So Matt, let's start with you and tell us who you are, and then Mike, we'll go to you.
All right, I'm Matt Paxton. Many of you probably know me from the TV show Hoarders, but I also have a new show on public television called Legacy List with Matt Paxton, and I help people tell their stories.
And I love that you talked about telling stories, because that's really what we're going to talk about tonight from you both of your unique perspective as you get into people's homes and lives. So I can't wait. Okay, Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Kelleher, and I am on the show Legacy List with Matt Paxton, and I am what I guess I describe myself as a stuff expert.
A stuff expert. Okay. Yeah. How did you two meet?
So I'll start it. I was going to a Christmas party, and it was like an ugly or a tacky sweater Christmas party. And my neighbor goes, "There's this guy, he finds these things and he sells them. Come to our house." And I was like, "It's like this guy drives around and like sells sweaters out of his van?" And she was like, "Yes." And I was like, I got to meet this guy, So I go over and I meet him, and I ended up buying a sweater. And a couple weeks later, I met him at another New Year's Eve party, about a month later. And I was like, "Tell me what you do, man." And we start talking. Mike's the guy that all the kids play with at a party. Like they all jump on his knee and they all hang out with him, and he knows all the video games and he runs around with them. And I was like, "This is a cool guy." And I was like, "No, what do you do?" And we started talking, and I was like, "So you like go to all these places and pick out records and just weird objects?" And I was like, "Dude, you met the one guy in the world you need to meet at this party." And his wife told me I had to hire him a couple days later. And we weren't even, Mike and I weren't smart enough to put two and two together. And then his wife was, and she just flat out told me, like, "You got to hire him." And so like a month later, we interviewed him and we offered him a job right on the spot. And here we are, 5 years later, on a national TV show.
Okay, so so excited to have you both here. Tell us a little bit about the show that you're currently doing together for those of our viewers who've never heard about it.
Okay, so Legacy List, it's called Legacy List with Matt Paxton, and it's about, Mike and I used to clean out houses. We've been doing that. Gosh, I've been doing it for almost 20 years. Mike's done it off and on for 10. And there's always, when you go into a house, and it's usually somebody downsizing, it's not necessarily hoarding, it's just people who lived in a house 50 years. It's a family house, and generations have come through it, and they've got lots of stuff. And that's what Mike and I did for a business for many years. Nothing about TV. That's how we fed our families. We'd go into a house and we'd help people get rid of stuff. And I would do like the talking and the hanging out, and Mike would help me like figure out what all the stuff was. I'd be like, "There's a box of records up there, man." And he'd be like, "Oh yeah, there's this one that's really awesome." And then he'd be like, "But what you didn't see was the Corningware. The Corningware is worth $200, and it's the stuff that nobody wanted." And so Mike really gave me like some substance. We go in there, we'd be able to say, well, guys, this isn't all trash. You don't need to donate all of it. Mm-hmm. But when the kind of the theory of a legacy list is, the family always gives us 4 or 5 items they want us to find. They're not lost. They're just somewhere in the home. It's usually like a wedding ring. Used to always be a wedding ring. Like, "Yeah, I lost it somewhere in my bedroom 20 years ago."
Really? Like they really think you're going to be able to find it?
Yeah, we normally ring. We always find, honestly. Jewelry we always find. It'll be like a picture or like a statue or just something. It's usually something small. It's not usually something big.
Uh-huh.
And then now, as the show's evolved, they're often like, "Well, I want to just know more about my family." And so genealogy kicks into it. So they'll be like, my grandpa always said that they came over on the Mayflower. and here's a table that he like carved on the Mayflower. And of course we turn it over and it says Haverty's, but like they've got a family story that's very real to them.
Yes.
And so we have to very delicately go and find the real story. And the show is about stories. It's not about stuff, but the stuff is the vehicle. And when Mike and I would do this as a career, we just loved hearing people's stories. I mean, I just love it. Like when someone will sit down and they'll say, "Oh, well, this is my grandpa's," and I say, "Well, how'd your grandpa get it?" "Oh, well, he was like, Mike, do you remember we had one? It was a piece of wood, a piece of looked like driftwood to me, but in it, what was it, Mike? It was a prowl or a.
Oh yeah, it was from a boat in the Pacific Islands, and the gentleman was in the war, and he brought it back from the war.
Yeah, and I said, "Now, how did you get this?" It was a wood carving of a South Pacific.
Looks like that.
And it was a South Pacific canoe. And she goes, "Oh, my grandpa was in the war, and he always loved this, and he brought it home to us." So then we took it further. Our research team, this is on the show Legacy List. We were able to go back and actually find what unit her grandpa was in. And it turns out he was an engineer. And I read that as like, oh, he's a mathematician. That's cool. No, what the expert told us, he would go before the U.S. troops would like land on an island. He would sneak into the island and figure out where they should land. And so he would figure out the mechanics of like, oh, the boats can land here, and this is the time of the waves and the water levels. Yeah, tides and when the people are there. They were spies. They'd go and scout these places. And when this dude's figuring out where thousands of troops, our grandpas and grandpas, can land, he had time to somehow say, "Oh, that's a beautiful piece of art."
Yeah.
And he brought it home. And that just blew us away. And then now fast forward, his daughter, I said granddaughter, his daughter is 60 years later, she's an art expert and had taught at MIT, had taught art history at MIT. And I'm like, no wonder you were so into art. Your dad found it in the middle of the war. And, so it's really fun. We find these items and we're able to be like, well, yeah, I get your personality. Like, I see why you act the way you do. And I see why your granddaughter is the way she is, because the women and men in your earlier generations, they instilled these beliefs in art for that family. So God, Mike and I could tell 1,000 stories, but we just love hearing those stories. And what you've noticed is you don't hear us talk about the financial value.
Okay, you're about the artifact and the story and how it came to be and what it represents and the meaning behind it.
I don't even care if the story is like 100% historically accurate. I want to know about the person that told the story, who passed it on to you, and what did it mean to you. The financial value really doesn't matter. At the end of when you die, you can't take the money with you. So we don't care. We really care about that story. And Mike and I I had hundreds of employees at one point, and Mike was the one that I always loved to be in the house with and just be like, "Well, dude, what'd you find?" He's like, "Oh, this lady, she had a cat." And he'd tell me about the cat, and he'd be like, "This cat's amazing." And we would just hear these really cool stories. So Legacy List has come a long way in 2 years. We're actually filming season 2 right now. We're in the middle of it. And we kind of stumbled upon a very historical time in the world. We're filming in the middle of a pandemic during Black Lives Matter, during, a woman is now running for vice president. I mean, it's pretty amazing. We're actually in, 20 years from now, all the stuff we find in history we'll be talking about this last year, I feel like. And so it's been really interesting for us to see all these new things.
Wow. So Mike, I just want to ask you, and I love that, Matt. I love that you shared that thing that looked like kind of nothing. Not only was it something, but formative in that family story. Mike, what drew you to kind of understanding stuff? And like, did you grow up and say, I want to go to college to like go to estate search? What drew you into that?
Well, I just always, I'll tell you what, generationally, I grew up in a time where collecting things was just ingrained. In the 80s and 90s, there was all kinds of comic books and trading cards and like all kinds of things that were limited edition and otherwise collectible. And so I think probably from from something along the lines of comic books or cards. I've kind of got the collector's bug, so to speak. But to be honest, like there were shows on TV that I would watch and just, really geek out on. And then I started geeking out at the different stores and yard sales and museums, and just kind of like really just soaking in as much information as I could. And then, it's one of those things, the knowledge is good, but unless you put it to use, what good is it? And my wife, God bless her, she got Matt and I together. But the one thing that she'll admit, hi babe, if you're watching, but she'll admit that, she changed her tune in terms of her outlook on my knowledge of collecting when I started working with Matt, because it validated that this knowledge is important, because there's so many people out there that have stuff, whether it's their stuff or their kids' stuff or their parents' stuff or whoever's, and they don't know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. And honestly, sometimes the right option is to keep it. Sometimes it's best to sell it. Sometimes it's best to donate it. And sometimes it's best to throw it away or recycle it. So, it gives me a lot of joy, basically, to help people find the best outlet for their stuff.
I love that. The best outlet for their stuff. So we would love to hear from those who are watching and joining us here with Matt and Mike from the Legacy List. And we're talking today about the stuff that we find and the stories that we find in our stuff. And I have a question for you both, and it's kind of based off something Mike said. You talked about collectibles, and as you've gone through professionally and as part of the show and helped people sort of unearth or go through their things, what are some of the most interesting types of collections you've seen?
Matt, you want to go?
Yeah, you go start. You go first.
Okay. I mean, shoot, I've seen some pretty amazing things. I found a Picasso in a house. I found amazing record collections, just insane.
Let's stop on that Picasso real quick. People don't realize Picasso made a bunch of art at the end. He'd sell it for like $100. He didn't care.
And plates and anything he could put with his name on it, he did it.
Yeah.
But
he's still a Picasso.
Picasso, that's right.
I was standing there in the house. Mike brought it up because this is a real Picasso. I'm like, what?
I'm like, no.
And it's like that big by day. He's like, that's Picasso, dude. And I'm like,
wow.
Whatever thought I'd be holding a Picasso in my hands,
Never.
Yeah.
And it was in a pile of things that you would not expect a Picasso to deserve to be in.
But then you hear the family story and it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like when they put it together, it's really, really cool. All right, I cut you off. Keep going, Mike. What are some of the other cool collections?
Yeah, records.
Records. I helped a former NASCAR team owner and see his collection of NASCAR memorabilia. I'm not even into NASCAR, but I could appreciate the things that he had. And I mean, just so many things. But honestly, some of the most amazing things are not the most valuable things.
Right.
So, while it's important to me to make sure people don't throw away treasure, even if they don't want it, let's get it to the right place and maybe get you some money for it. But
well, like that flag we found, man. We found a 44-star flag.
Yeah.
And it was like midnight. We've been cleaning all day. It was late in the night. We found this and we couldn't count. Mike and I kept.
You were too tired.
We were too tired. We've been cleaning for like 3 days straight because sometimes you're on an actual deadline and you might go for like 36 hours straight to get it done. And you just never know. And it was late. It was past midnight. And we found this flag and Mike and I are trying to count it. And we couldn't count to 44 because we just kept thinking it was 50. And we're like, wait, what? Huh? What? And then finally some girl walks in and she goes, it's 44, guys. And then we started thinking like, where do you get a 44-star flag? Like there was no flag store back then, and then we turned out it was actually for when Utah became a state. That's what it was actually made for.
Wow.
Yeah. And so then it was like, well, wait a minute. How did your dad or your grandpa get this flag? And so we had to do some research there. But yeah, that wasn't, I mean, we never even found out the financial value because it wasn't like the family ever really cared. They just loved the story and they wanted to know more. But like that was not a $1 million collection. I mean, we found some incredible cars, incredible car collections. I'll tell you, coolest thing I ever found, I loved, was that in that same house, Mike, we found a key. The guy her grandfather worked on, what was it?
The
M&O or it was a Pennsylvania to Ohio, or it was a Pennsylvania to Ohio railroad.
Okay.
And I found the locker to his key, or the key to his locker on his train. And it was what he would keep his like wallet in and stuff. So if he got robbed, his, things that mattered, they wouldn't get that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a key like that big. And I just thought, God, it was 150 years old. And I was just like, gosh, there's only one of these keys, and like, we just found it. And the lady had no idea. And she's like, and then her daughter was like, that's my great grandfather's work key. Like, that's so cool. And so she put it on a necklace. Nothing amazing.
But it's a connection.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I mean, we're suckers for stories, really anything. I mean, I found, we had a beer bottle collection that was insane.
Yeah.
And
you found Liberace's boots.
Yeah, I found Liberace's boots. Yes. This guy had actually collected all this Liberace stuff. And I ended up buying a pair of boots from him at the auction. Wow. I mean, we rarely buy stuff. That's a question I have for you, Mike. Was there ever anything you wish you had bought from a house that we cleaned?
I'll tell you what, there's things that I would love to have, but our deal is if we want it, we buy it, we bid on it just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. So that way there's no muddying of the water, so to speak. It's all above board and the most money the family can get for the item. But there was a sign that somebody had taken off of the Berlin Wall, and this was well before it was torn down, and you could have been shot for that. And so I saw that and I was like, that'd be really cool to have. But at the same time, I knew there's somebody out there that would love it more than me.
Mm. So you go in, you help people like clean out, you discover sort of treasures. What do you think is really is there a theme or something that you find in every home when you're helping them clean out that connects people to their stuff? Is it like something that's been passed down, or is it like, is there a common sort of theme that really
ties? I got an answer to that.
Okay, good.
This surprised me on the show. It doesn't surprise me now, but I mean, we have been cleaning houses for, almost 20 years with my hoarding work too. But there's always a really strong female in the family that was in charge of the history. And it's never the man, it's never grandpa. And so the stories might be about grandpa, but the documentation of the history was a strong, powerful woman. And so now we go in like, who was the awesome chick in your family? Like, oh, that's my great grandma. And then they start, we know where to start. So we save like a day because we start talking about who was this amazing woman. And now just naturally, it's just always women. I mean, every house we do. I mean, we were at one, I don't want to tell too much. It's a season 2 spoiler, but we were at a very famous Civil War general's family's house. Mm-hmm. And there were, everything in that house was right in the middle of the Civil War. I mean, gosh, we found something the other day, Mike, in a house that was like literally at the ending of the Civil War. This item had been worn by someone at the last day of the Civil War. Like, it was fascinating to me.
Goodness.
Yeah, but like, we found all these things. What was I going to talk about on the Civil War part of it? Oh, this big, amazing plantation. Mm-hmm. And we were the family, the current family didn't know if they want to keep up with it or not. It was starting to wear them down. And they're like, well, we're not really proud of the family heritage as much as we used to be. It's 2020. And we found a diary up in the attic from the woman right after the Civil War. And it was the exact same words. She's like, I don't know if I want to keep this place. Like, it's kind of wrong. It's not really ethical anymore. And it's just a lot of work. And it was the same thing this lady's great granddaughter was now saying to us.
Wow.
It's crazy. So we love them. We love all the stories. We love the collections. I tell you what, a collection I find all the time that I don't love.
Yes. Tell us what you don't love.
Beanie Babies.
Oh,
I am not a Beanie Baby lover.
My kids got into that. Oh, they did.
There's only 2 that are worth anything, and the rest of them aren't.
Okay, which 2?
The Princess Diana purple one, and then what's the crab's name? It's Louis the Crab. It's from 1997, and there's like 3 misspelled words on the label. That's why. If it doesn't have the label, it doesn't matter.
So
it's a tie-dyed crab, and I thought I found one this week, actually, Mike, at that house that you and I were at. I found one, and then as I spent like 20 minutes on it, I realized it was a miniature Happy Meal toy. It's worth 99 cents.
Okay. Mike, I love that question and Matt's answer. Is there a collection or something that you don't like to discover, or when you see, you're like,
For the most part, no. I just really enjoy and greatly appreciate the people letting us into their homes and sharing their stories. So it's really interesting to me. Sometimes we don't meet the family, and we're dealing with a distant relative who's in charge of emptying the house. So I'll learn a lot about the person who lived in the house through their stuff. And, that's really fascinating to me. But then when we have the bonus of being able to talk to that talk to that person or people that know them, it really fills in a lot of gaps. So no matter what the items are, I just appreciate that it means something to them. And
yes, that is
enough for me.
Very respectful. I appreciate you saying that. We have a couple of questions that we'll get to, and I just before we get to our questions, one of our questions is, where can people watch Legacy List, and when will season 2 be available? So do you want to answer that, Matt?
Yeah, so season 2 will come out in January, probably 3rd week of January 2021. We are, as you can imagine, it's hard to film in the middle of a pandemic. So we're actually on a 2-week break right now. We go back out at the end of next week. You can find it on pbs.org on demand or on their app right now. And then with any public television, you just got to look on your local directory, because every public television is different. I always use Utah as an example. You've got 2 different public television stations in the same city, and they're going to air at different times. So just go to your local provider. But if you're a little more tech savvy, you can go online. We're putting together a kind of a guide to it now on mylegacylist.com. But best thing is just go on your local PBS station and find out when it airs. It's on. Everyone's running reruns from season 1 right now, so it's on sometime. And if not, you just watch it on demand. And pbs.org has 1 episode for free right now you can watch.
Okay, awesome. Okay, we have someone asking, Sarah, she has grandparents that have lived in the same house for 50 years.
Love it.
And they have military background. And so they have all of this military stuff. So if you were to, give Sarah some advice as the granddaughter who doesn't want to have to do all the heavy lifting, what sort of advice would you give someone in that circumstance?
Mike, go for it.
Well, number one, if there's guns in the house, make sure that they know how to properly, handle them, or bring somebody else in to look at them and inspect them. Beyond that, I would say, if we're talking like World War II items, which, they can, a lot of soldiers brought back items that are very, very controversial. So even though they were brought back as sort of like spoils of war, and they meant something as sort of a sign of victory, still they're symbols of hate and other things that aren't well received. So I would say look at the items and get a feel for what's in the collection. And then from there, maybe just start grouping things together. If it's uniforms or paperwork or photographs, just group those things together, and then see if anybody in the family wants them. And believe it or not, there are outlets for items that are related to Nazism and things. Like the Holocaust museums and other organizations that are really showing the true history.
Yeah, I'll say really, you just got to, just like anybody working on genealogy, you got to do your homework. And you got to find out what you got, and you got to you want to put together basically just an inventory list of what you have, and then start digging. And I'm new to genealogy this year. I think I told you, Andy, I went to Roots Tech on a whim. I knew nothing about genealogy, and I walked into Roots Tech.
World existed.
I mean, Mike, I came home and told you about it for like 2 weeks. I mean, it's like walking in the Super Bowl. And every booth I walked through every single booth in the trade hall.
Well, you called me one night from Roots Tech.
Yeah.
Like I think your first night or second night there, and you were just beside yourself with everything you were learning.
I mean, it was like in college. Actually, it was better than college. I was learning a lot more. And I was more older, more mature to learn. And it blew me away. Like there's so many specific people about very specific little things. And so, what Mike and I have learned, and we do this in the show, we do this in our real lives, and we tell other people to do it. Like just pick one item and start to dig down on it and find out what we can. You'd be amazed how much you learn. And then, I mean, we reach out to some of the top experts, and people reach out to me all the time. Well, what do I do? And I'm like, oh, well, let me connect you with, you're in Mississippi. Great. I'll connect you with a very specific war person in Mississippi. There's a lot of small war memorials and war museums that there's like one dude running it, and he would love to talk to you. Like he would think it's the greatest thing in the world. And and there's a lot of people, depending upon the war, there's only a few left in some of these guys. And so, you want to talk to them there. I mean, we found, this was on a hoarded house I was cleaning, but a couple years ago, but it was right over by, where did the Civil War end, Mike? What's the battlefield? Yeah. We should, it's an hour from our house. We should know. But anyway, this house was right on the end of the battlefield, and it's a 13-mile battlefield. And we found a bazooka, like a rocket launcher, and it was in German. And so one of my guys started translating it for me. He's like, I think this says it can shoot 10 miles. He's like, but my German might not be great. And so we were like, do we shoot it? The answer was no, we didn't. But like, we ended up, turned out that it was something the guy had brought back from the Korean War. And it was just a fascinating thing. I mean, it was fascinating to find it. So, and it was actually live ammunition. So we ended up having to call in a gun handler. And we actually called the bomb squad. They came in and got everything. So to Mike's point, safety first, but then get curious and just take your time. I mean, there's no one place for all your answers. That doesn't exist.
Okay, we're getting some good questions, you guys. This is from Helen, and she wants to know, how would you preserve something like a tracker, pipe organ, or pieces of it?
So there's two ways to go here. I tend to go with an upcycle, which is instead of recycling it, it's like, how can we repurpose it for the family? And some of these people love, some don't. My favorite upcycle I ever saw was we always find a jar of grandma's buttons. And there's always a ball jar of a ton of really cool buttons. And we had one family that they all went and got the most weirdest, wildest button they could find. And they put it on top, on the top button of their jacket. So each one of them had a wild, crazy button from their grandma. And so it started as a crazy conversation starter. And I love that. And so I tell those things like, and so then everyone in the family, people would say, well, what's up the button? Like, oh, let me tell you about my grandma. And then tell the story. Great conversation starter. So I try to find on the organ, like if it's non-functioning, Tracker's a decent brand. It's not going to be, it's not the most amazing. And if you're not going to actually play it, I say take the pieces out, frame it, put it on a wall, a lot like your really nice blankets or quilts you have behind you.
Yeah, do a display.
Display it. And then I like everybody to have a piece. And I always get quoted on that Bible verse when they say, you don't cut off your hair, you give it to the person. And it's like, man, sometimes it's okay if everybody wants a piece, like let them have it. If you're not going to play the organ, who cares? I can tell you now, organs are not highly in demand, especially pump organs, and specifically wagon pump organs. So there's not a big market for them financially. And I think one thing Mike always says, if you're deciding what it will sell for, you've already made the decision to leave it from your home, to remove it from your home. So why all of a sudden, if it's only worth a certain amount, would you not remove it? I mean, sometimes you have to remember you've already made the decision to let it go.
Yeah.
So who cares? Like, don't bring it back just because there's not a dollar amount on it. Like, just give it to someone that will care.
Okay, this is great. All right, we have Sally has a Persian wedding bowl. Maybe Mike, this one's for you from the 1600s that their great grandfather bought off the docks in Liverpool, and she doesn't know how to research its history or value. What would you recommend? These are stumper questions.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so Persian wedding bowl from the 1600s.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing I would do is, like, as crazy as this sounds, I would Google wedding bowls, Persian wedding bowls, and just see what comes up. You're going to get a ton of stuff that you don't want to look through and doesn't even apply. But you might find something that's going to, just like with genealogy, you find that one little piece of information about a family member, and then it leads to all the others. So first step is always just do a Google search. Beyond that, what I would do is, depending on where was it Sally?
Sally, yes.
Where depending on where Sally lives, she might have a museum in her area that she could take the bowl to and see if they have somebody who might be able to give her more information on that. Use the resources that are in your area, because there are a ton of them that just go untapped. And then beyond that, I would say, a piggyback off of the Google is, believe it or not, check eBay.
eBay, that's a great tip.
You can get a lot of good information. You have to vet it, but you can get a lot of good information off of eBay, because if somebody's going to sell it, they have to list it accurately. And so maybe you find the same bowl or a similar bowl and you can compare, or maybe there's some information in the description that helps you narrow it down. But I'd love to see the bowl. Like, I'm curious.
Yes, Sally, send us a photo. We'll get it to Mike.
Don't be afraid to call an appraiser as well. I mean, if you're finding out, if your pre-research tells you, like, if you don't find it at all, that either means you researched it wrong, or it might be really interesting because it's not been listed. And so both are really cool. Now, an appraiser is going to cost you money, and I would estimate around $200 an hour for that. So you got to make sure you want to invest in that. And I always say the research Mike talks about, if you see 100 of the same item and they all are listed for $100 each, well, you're not going to call an appraiser, but it might let you know, okay, it's worth calling one. It doesn't mean you're going to sell it. You just want to know, is it worth even, learning more about it?
And I'll say one thing real quick about the appraisers. Great option. I'll say two things. Number one, when you're talking to an appraiser, ask if they will just take a look at it to see if it's even worth appraising.
Okay.
A lot of them will. And then the second thing is, I see it all the time and it drives me nuts. Don't let your appraiser try and make you an offer on the items, because that is 100% against the code. Yeah, exactly. So it's despicable.
If the appraiser makes you an offer, grab the item and walk out of there, because the appraisal's no good. The appraisal's no good if that's what they did. Yeah.
Okay.
Interest.
Super good advice. I really appreciate this. And Dorothy is asking if you have any ideas or if you've seen anything when it comes to preserving old smoking pipes.
Well, the smoking pipes, some of them are made out of Bakelite or corn cobs and other natural things. So, and then you have Bakelite, which is a form of plastic. So it really depends what they're made out of in terms of height. But honestly, I think if you keep them in a fairly humid, climate-controlled space, they should be pretty good. Tobacco, you want to keep lower humidity, but the pipes themselves, I feel like if you treat them like you would anything in your house normally and keep it climate controlled and in a moderate level of humidity, it should be all right.
Yeah, it's more about the climate in the house or where it's being preserved. It's less about actually sealing the pipe itself. I mean, it's like a violin. A violin needs to be played. Believe it or not, pipe needs to be smoked. That's crazy to say that, but it needs to be actually. I mean, if it just sits in a box, it's not going to do any good.
Yeah.
It needs to be out. The wood needs to breathe.
Okay. This is great. This is something from Mark.
Oh, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
If you pick up an old pipe and if you smell the tobacco, you're in the right climate. That means that wood is still good.
Okay.
So now your nose will tell you if it's any good or not. All right, keep going. Sorry.
What about Dorothy also is asking, she has some metal pipes. Would you say the same thing for metal?
Yeah, I think if it's like room temperature, like not in an unclimate controlled storage unit or a shed or something like that, I think it'll be fine.
But the metal's going to mean it's from a different region, and so I'm curious about the story on the pipe, because the what it's made of is metal, and silver makes it more southern South America, which is very interesting. So I want to know more about where they got it, that kind of stuff. The artwork on it, yeah.
Dorothy, you've got a job. Okay, so this is a comment from Marge, and I want to share it because I think it's something good to discuss. And she's nearing the end of her life, and she wants to know what to do with her stuff. She doesn't think it's worth money, but there's lots of stories. And so what would you recommend someone do to put the stories with their stuff? How would you advise Marge as she is, thinking about leaving and maybe wants to pair the stories with the stuff?
Well, Marge, I would first say try to get on my show. I'd love to come meet you. I mean, that's what we do on Legacy List. The next thing is you need to get family members involved. And if you don't have any family, get friends or neighbors. I mean, if you're over a certain age, you've helped somewhere along the way. You've helped someone somewhere. Most of my clients over 80, they don't want to be a bother, and they don't want to call a neighbor. And they say, oh, well, they won't care. Trust me, they do. They actually want to. So if you, Marge, you just asked that question, you're thinking, oh, I don't have anybody to call. Call them. They actually want you to call because they love this opportunity. And the youngest generation, the millennials right now, they really will help. They'll support you a lot. So don't be afraid to call a friend and call a local family, and just bite it in bite-sized pieces. You can't look at the whole house. It took you, let's say 60, 70, 80 years to collect it all. You're not going to do it in a long weekend. So I love to say, like, one story, one item. Do that every night. And if you have a cell phone, believe it or not, you can record the story into your phone. If not, you could write it down. Writing it down is probably not the best way to do it anymore. I really encourage you to have a grandson, granddaughter come over and just tell them the story. Let them video you telling the story. But you just have to ask for help and limit it to 10, 20 minutes every couple of days.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say this, with the pandemic, people have a lot more time on their hands right now to help. So it's in your favor if you have somebody who's around.
Yes.
Yeah. The stuff that you think is interesting may not be what your family thinks is interesting. So let them walk around the house and just say, hey, give me 2 items pick 2 items you want me to tell you about. And the kids will go, oh, well, Grandma, what's this? And you hold it up and she's like, oh, that's nothing. I got that when I was at the Olympics in '48. They'll be like, what? And so to you and me, that's nothing. But your kids don't know all the stories. And so it gets really, really interesting.
Yes. Okay, I've got a couple more questions for you guys. And I want to remind people that are participating, there is, Matt, you have a Facebook page where people can pay attention and they can follow you and find out information on the show. And then we'll continue to share the link to the legacylist.com. So, those of you who are asking questions and interested, this is fantastic. And you can always connect with these two that way. There's 2 questions. One is Gigi is asking, how can she get cigarette smoke out of a wood plaque? She has a wood plaque that has military pins attached to it. So Mike, you made a face. I hope that means you have an answer.
Well, depending, there's some different variables there. Like, is the wood finished? Is it not finished? Like, is the wood just a piece of wood and it's just the pins that are important? You may not be able to get the tobacco smell out. There's a machine that some companies have, disaster restoration companies will rent them out a lot of times. Was it a deionizer?
Yeah, it's called an ozone deionizer. If the whole house smells like smoke, then you're going to put everything in that house and they're going to put it in overnight and it'll take all the smell out. Make sure you want the smell to go out. I know this sounds crazy, but like sometimes the smell is the memory and it makes you think of the person. And then we've had families that say, I want all the smoke out. And then they do it and they're like, I kind of miss my grandpa. It doesn't smell like my grandpa anymore. But call any local restoration company. That would be like Service Master or what's the big green one, Mike?
Surf Pro?
Surf Pro, or they'll all have them. Or a Belfour. I mean, there's a lot of good ones, and that you can even rent the machine, believe it or not, at like a hardware.
Have them.
Yeah, but I mean, I would leave it unless it's really, really bad. Or Mike says if you can transfer it to a different Plaque, an old trophy store. There's still trophy stores in towns.
Yes, there is.
Be able to do it. Yeah.
You guys are just such a wealth of information. This is delightful. We have a couple more questions if you're still good.
I'm gonna keep answering that one. I hate to. This is the wrong group because I'm gonna say a crafting store, but the crafting stores or the framing stores would be able to. The framing stores would probably be able to restore that better than anybody could.
Okay.
They'll put it on a felt. They'll put it on a felt board.
Or put it in another frame that seals it. Yeah.
If the piece of wood is that important to you, yeah.
That's a great idea. Kind of like a shadow box almost. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tammy is asking, is there any good way to ID a signature on a painting? She's gone to museums but can't identify it. So I don't know if that means she's taken the painting to museums. But yeah, what tips do you have on that?
Well, paintings can be tough because it could be a very unknown artist who maybe was not very prolific. Maybe it was just a local artist and you just loved the painting. Could have been a student. It could have been any number of different things other than a Picasso or some sort of like uber famous artist. Oddly enough, I found a group on Facebook, okay, and they're called, and I might get the name of the group wrong, but it's something to the effect of help me ID this painting.
Wow.
Find the artist. And so you post a picture of the painting and people will help you try and decipher the name and maybe find some information. So I've seen some pretty amazing things with that. And then the other thing is, if you've been to a museum, as we talked about before, maybe an appraiser or somebody else, just or an art school might be a good option.
That's what I've written. I've written appraisal academies and I've written art schools and I've said, hey, look, I'm having a challenge with this piece of art. Can you have the students all try to do the research on it? And they'll take the pic. Now I can call because they'll take my phone call, but you'd be amazed how many groups may just help you. And I love what Mike said. There's a Facebook group for everything. And people don't realize it now. I mean, and even an appraiser, if you're going to call a local appraiser or a local auction company, they might have an expert. I mean, like I have for African-American art, there's a local auctioneer in Washington, D.C. that I use, and they have a Russian woman that is an expert on African-American art, but she's the best regionally. And so I'll call him and say, look, I'm not selling this, but I need to buy like an hour of her time. And as long as you are upfront, like we're not selling, then they're interested in doing it for the right. But what you don't want to do to an auctioneer is be like, oh yeah, I'm going to sell it. And then you find out the price and you're like, never mind.
Yeah.
Just be open to say, I'm just going to research.
Yeah.
But there's an expert for everything. Don't be afraid to call them.
I love that. Okay, we have a couple people actually asking about quilts. I think because I've got some displayed behind me, and these are quilts my mom has made. So, but they want to know, someone has quilts from like the late 1800s and some from their grandparents. So what is the recommendation? Is it best to put it away? Is it a display item? What do you recommend for people who want to preserve old quilts?
Well, I would say, there's the trusty cedar box, like the Hope chest or the Lane chest that were really popular. I would also say take into account who's in your environment. If it's just adults, use the quilts, enjoy them. But if it's kids and dogs and cats, and I mean, the cats won't mess them up for sure, but those dogs will. And so think about preserving them and keeping them away from the kids and the critters. But other than that, having a quilt that never sees the light of day is pretty sad.
Yes.
And don't be afraid of the shadow box preservation side of it as well. We've seen some pretty amazing quilts in our day, really restored properly and hung. I did a blog about this a couple of weeks ago, and I got just destroyed about it because I had a family that there was 4 sisters. They all wanted it. And I said, fine, just cut it into 4 pieces. And
That's a great idea.
And I thought it was a great idea. And every quilter in America destroyed my Twitter and my Instagram. They're like, how dare you? How dare
They
you?
destroyed you like you wanted to destroy the quilt.
Well, yeah. And they're like, hey, how dare you? They're like, that the other 3 daughters should have given it up so that it wouldn't be torn apart. And these are clearly women that have like labored over really good, intricate, they've made those quilts. And if you've never made a quilt, you don't understand how hard it is and how proud of it. But end of the day, man, it's the story. Who made it? Why do they want it? Pianos is another one. I've seen families break up over a piano 2 generations ago, and now they fight over who has to take it, not who gets it.
Wow.
It just depends. Just depends.
Yeah, I think I love how you talked about looking for the stories in the stuff, and it's about the stories, not the stuff. And as we're wrapping up, I would love for you guys to share if you have like an artifact or something that you love and treasure and what it means to you. And then of course we need to know, oh yes, tell us about this.
This is my grandfather's coffee, Stanley coffee thermos. He took it with him every day to work. I've never saw him without it. And until he got at like 85, his doctor's like, he can't drink coffee anymore. And he called me. He's like, I think I'm going to die tomorrow. And I go, why? He goes, I can't drink coffee anymore. There's no point in living. And he's 85. He's a farmer. He's a postmaster, worked his tail off. And when he died, this is the one thing I wanted, just because it was always right in the front of his truck. And a year later, my dad died, believe it or not. And my dad's ashes are in this thermos. So this is my dad in here, which is crazy. People think that's creepy, but I love it. I've got my dad and my grandpa at my desk every day.
Hey, fantastic story.
I mean, to work hard.
Yeah, and I love how it represents a work ethic, right?
Anytime I want to quit, I look at that thermos and I'm like, those 2 dudes would not have quit. And I just reminds me to keep going.
Oh, that's good to know that you want to quit sometimes.
All the time I want to quit.
All the time.
But I just
what we do isn't easy.
It's not an option.
What we do is not easy. And if it was easy, everybody would do this themselves and we wouldn't have a job.
Yeah. It's highly emotional, but we love it.
Yeah.
So, Mike, do you have like something that you treasure, an artifact or an heirloom that means a lot to you? Of course you do.
I do. I sure do. I've got certain records that are absolutely priceless to me. And then, just random things. But honestly, like, it's my wedding photo. I can't replace that. That special feeling and place it holds in my heart. It's the most important thing to me. So.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay,
what's yours? You don't get off that easy. What's yours?
Oh. Okay, so that's unexpected. So the funny thing is, like, my background, I'm a scrapbooker, so I did scrapbooking and oh my gosh, I have so many scrapbooks. And it tends to be my latest, like the thing I treasure the most tends to be my latest story that I've shared. And so this is an interesting one. And it's not necessarily, there's not a physical representation, but my oldest son just turned 29. And so I thought, as a storyteller, I wanted to tell stories. And so I created a secret Instagram account where I recorded myself telling 29 stories. And I had this like highlight reel. I went to all the places that were important, where we went to elementary school, preschool, where we took the bus, the hospital. And then in the headline, I said, I used a line from Hamilton: who lives, who dies, who tells your story? And I said, I do. And so his gift was 29 stories. And I said, you have lived 10,585 days. and I am here as a witness to talk about your life. And so I gave him a QR code for his birthday, and he had his phone and he scans it and he looks and he sees this Instagram account with all these stories, and he just starts, getting emotional and lost it. So I would say my most sort of prized, artifact or possession is the latest story that I've recorded, like something like that. So it's an Instagram account. That's
awesome. What a story. That's awesome. I love it.
Thank you.
So my mom's watching. Mom, you hear what she just did for her son? Get going, woman.
She's got a lot of stories to tell. It was an awesome experience, and he's the oldest of 5. So I may have set myself up for when my kids turn 29, they're going to get something like this. And I think that's fine. I love it. I think in the ways we tell our stories, it doesn't only say what we care about, but it also kind of represents, it's almost like a tangible piece of our hearts, I think. So this has been a delight. Where can we stay in touch with you? And what sort of final message do you have as we wrap up this fantastic, fun interview?
So for us, website is mylegacylist.com, mylegacylist.com. If you sign up for our mailing list, we'll send you a bunch of cool stuff, not too much, about every other month. We actually have our 10 conversation starters that we're sending out. If you sign up for the list, you get 10 questions that you should ask your grandma or grandpa to get them telling their story.
Awesome.
But sign up for that. And then all the social media is I am Matt Paxton. It's I am Matt Paxton. Mike, what's yours? Yours is
LegacyList_Mike.
Yeah, LegacyList_Mike. And I'll speak for both of us. I mean, we just want you to tell the story. Like, just get out there and like once a week tell a story, and like walk around the house and just find something you thought was cool. And I don't mean from the last 10 years. I mean from your whole life.
Yes.
And like, just start telling the story and tell your kids, tell someone. It doesn't even have to be a family member. Just tell someone that'll listen. Mm-hmm. And like you did, I mean, start putting it online, like digitize it. I mean, anything, but just tell your stories. I promise you someone cares, and you'll be amazed how fun your life gets when you start sharing your stories.
Oh, Matt, I love that. Mike, do you want to add to that?
Well, I'll just piggyback. I mean, when you start sharing things, I think the best part is seeing what your friends and family share back, because you'll hear things that you never would have heard otherwise from people that you talk to all the time. So I'd say the more you get, it's like, what was it? Paul McCartney said, the love you take is equal to the love you make, or something like that. But you start putting things out there, you'll get a lot back. And I think those stories are just unbelievable.
Oh my goodness. You guys are delightful. Thank you so much for spending time with us. And we can't wait for season 2 of the Legacy List.
Well, thank you. And thank you, FamilySearch, for supporting us and just being a good partner. And just get curious, you guys. Get curious on whether it's genealogy or family stories or whatever. Just start asking questions, and your life will get better. Really cool.
Oh,
Let's do this again. We could probably do this all night. Let's do it again.